Hi, I'm Strength and Conditioning Specialist Mike Mejia, and welcome to our third and final installment in our series on proper warm-up protocols for young athletes. This time around, we're going after that 14 or 15 to 18-year-old age range. And with these big guys and girls, you definitely want to make sure that you're getting their bodies properly fired up and ready for competition, because they're going to be moving a lot faster, cutting and changing direction, and placing their bodies under a lot more physical demand than some of the younger age athletes we covered in previous videos. Now feel free to include things like high knees and butt kickers and side shuffles and all those basic types of drills. But the drills that you're going to see here are a nice complement to those as well, because they incorporate a strength aspect and they also work on that interplay between stability and mobility that is so crucial to athletic success. I'm also going to throw in a special section that's more geared towards female athletes with some specific dynamic warm-up protocols that they should use to help ward off knee injuries. So let's take a look at some of those drills right now.
All right, so we've got Nicole all set to help us out, and the first drill in our 14 to 18-year-old warm-up is flings. And these are just like a jumping jack, but what she's doing here is crossing the arms over and crossing the legs over. So what we're getting here is we're getting a lot of activation in the muscles around the feet and ankles. She's also warming up the groin and warming up the shoulders and dynamically stretching the chest as well. And those are flings, and you're going to want to do about 15 or 20 reps. Next up, we're going to fire up the hips with some prisoner squats. Hands are placed behind the head, feet are about shoulders width apart, and Nicole drives her hips back, keeping her chest up. Great job. A little deeper, Nicole, and a little quicker. We want to drive up and through here. Notice the way those hips break back first. Excellent form. Turn and give me a profile view here, Nicole, so we can see what's going on. Chin up, chest up, hips break back, really firing up those glutes and hamstrings, going down to a 90-degree position and firing up. And those are prisoner squats, and we want to do anywhere between 10 and 12 reps. Next, we've got a very challenging drill called around the horn. Now with these, you're going to be getting an active static stretch, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a second. What Nicole's going to do is she's going to balance on one leg, and from a standing position, she's going to lift the leg up high out to the front, hold for a second or two, out to the side with the toes pointed back, up high to the sky, and then back behind her, and then pull right through. As you can see, it takes a tremendous amount of balance. She's holding each position, but only for about 2 seconds. So when she lifts the leg to the front, she activates the hip flexor and stretches the hamstring. There she's stretching the adductor or the inner thigh, and there she's stretching the hip flexor while activating the opposite glute. And these are called around the horns. Very challenging drill, and you'll want to do anywhere between 5 or 6 of these per leg. All right, now we've got Nicole down on the ground for an exercise called windmills. For these, she's going to get in a push-up position with her shoulders directly over her wrists, and her feet are spaced a little bit wider than a regular push-up, and you'll see why in a second. From here, she's going to open up to one side, hold for a second, come back down and around. Great job. Now at the top, she holds that position. We're working on shoulder stability here. We're warming up the core. Nice way to get the hips opened up. And notice she uses a nice controlled form, rolling onto the outsides of the feet, not just throwing the arm, keeping the hips high and the arms stacked one over the other. And those are called windmills, and you'll want to do about 10 to 12 repetitions alternating to each side. Next, she's on her back for an exercise called a single leg bridge, a fantastic way to really fire up the glutes and hamstrings and get a dynamic stretch on the hip flexor in the front of the thigh. She's going to bring one leg up and over her abdomen, and she's going to keep it there, bent at that 90-degree position. From here, she's going to drive that left foot into the ground and bridge the hips up in the air, down under control. It's important to keep the core brace tight here, so her abdominals are firing hard, belly button's pulling in towards her spine. As she fires up, you really see that left glute and hamstring activating, and that's a single leg bridge, and you're going to want to do about 8 to 10 repetitions per leg. Next, we're after the adductors or the inner thighs with a drill called a side lunge walk. Here, Nicole is going to stride out to her side, sit back into her hips, and keep the off leg, in this case the left leg, straight, and then shift back as she pushes through. I want you to notice the way she really sits back into those hips, yet keeps her chest up. She's sitting down as the foot makes contact with the ground, making sure to keep the toe, the knee, and the hip all pointed straight ahead, and she's getting a tremendous stretch in her opposite leg here, the left adductor or inner thigh. And this is a side lunge walk, and you'd want to do this for about 10 yards and then back the other way. Time to go after those hamstrings with a drill called Frankenstein's. Arms out in front of you, chest up tall, and you're going to begin by kicking up towards your fingertips and then controlling the leg as it comes back down. Now notice here the way she doesn't move her torso. She's got flexible hamstrings, so she's just about able to reach her fingertips, but that's not the goal here. What you want to do is just get a nice dynamic stretch in the hamstrings. If you're not able to kick up as far, don't worry about it, but you definitely don't want to shorten that torso, yank that chest down, or change that torso position at all. And those are Frankensteins, and you'll want to do those for about 10 to 15 Next, we've got Nicole set up for a drill called power skips. With these, she's going to begin by driving one leg up as the opposite arm comes forward, and she's driving the knee up high, Using sprinter's arms, as she drives up nice and high, hops through, she's going to turn it around. And now as you can see, as the right knee drives forward, that left arm comes up, coming up nice and high off the ground, really driving that knee. And those are power skips, and you'll want to do these for about 10 to 15 yards as well. All right, as you can see, I've got Nicole positioned for a rather challenging drill here called the push-up to sprint. She's down on the floor in a push-up position. Now you can run a couple of these towards the end of your warm-up to get your athletes really primed and ready for sprinting. Here from this push-up position, when I give her the signal, she's going to get up as quickly and as efficiently as she can and sprint anywhere from 20 to 30 yards. Set, go! All right, our first drill with these extra warm-ups is something called hip circuits. Now for these, Nicole is down in an all-fours position. Notice the nice flat back, and here she's going to begin by bringing her right leg in, out to the side, and back in a nice straight line. Good, give me a couple reps there, Nicole. She's making sure to keep the lower back still and out of the movement, and what we're doing here is really trying to improve the mobility of the hips. Now for some of you, this might feel a little more like a strength workout initially, but keep at it and you'll get a good range of motion. Now after doing about 8 repetitions there, she'd switch and go back and then come around nice and wide. The key here is keep the lower back still, but yet get as much movement through the hips as possible. Great, Nicole. And after about 8 reps there, the leg would come straight out to the side, move those toes up a little further forward, and with the back flat, 8 lifts. Now this is definitely the hardest part of the drill, but it'll definitely help build some strength in those hips, really help with decelerating and various types of change of direction drills. And those are hip circuits, and you're going to want to do about 8 repetitions of all 3 motions. Next up, we got a pretty interesting drill called step out sumo squats. With these, you're going to really be working on the adductors, the inner thighs. Notice Nicole's feet are pointed straight ahead, and then she steps out, kind of like a sumo wrestler, into a squat position, but the front knee and foot don't move. She's really stretching through those inner thighs. You want to make sure that front knee stays directly over the toes, and she keeps her knees up away from each other as she sits back into her hips and squats downward. Here we wouldn't want to have the knees pinching towards each other at all, or the back rounding. And that's a great job, and those are step out sumo squats, and you'll want to do about 5 to 6 repetitions per side alternate. Now here we're once again going to go after the hamstrings, but we're going to get a little bit more in the way of ankle, knee, and hip stability here with a drill that's called balancing leg swings. Now with these, they're similar to Frankenstein's in that Nicole is going to bring her leg up in front of her, but she's using her arms to help counterbalance the movement, trying to go a little bit bigger each time. And notice that she's not moving her torso all over the place. What she's getting is a nice stretch in the back of the hamstring, and when the leg goes behind, she's also getting a stretch in the hip flexor and the quad on the front of the thigh. And those are balancing leg swings. As you can see, it's very hard to maintain balance, and she's getting a lot of stability through the ankle, knee, and the hip. And you'll want to do about 12 to 15 repetitions per side. In keeping with the theme of the balancing leg swings, now we're going to do a side leg swing to target the groin. And as we did with the last exercise, we're going to get a lot of stability through the knee, hip, and ankle. Now with this one, as Nicole comes across her body, she points her toe inward, and as she goes out to the side, she turns the toe outward. And you can see it's very difficult to balance on this drill, but she's doing a great job, and as I said, getting a lot of stability through the hip, knee, and ankle. And that's the balancing cross-body leg swing, and you'll want to do about 10 to 12 repetitions per side. Next up, we've got a rotational lunge walk. Now with these, Nicole's going to begin by putting her hands behind her head, and she's going to stride forward into a lunge. Whatever leg is forward, she's going to rotate over that side and then turn away towards the open side. Good job. And she'd continue these for a distance of about 10 to 15 yards. She's trying to keep that front knee as still as possible, so when she rotates, the knee doesn't open up with her and it doesn't pinch in when she rotates to the other side. Elbows are back. Notice the way she drops the back knee down and keeps a nice erect torso. And that's the rotational lunge walk. And as I said, you're going to want to do about 10 to 15 yards with these. Our final drill is something called the hip cradle walk. Now with this one, Nicole's going to bring one leg across the front of her body, and she's going to pull up on the ankle and the knee. Pops up on the opposing calf, and what she's getting here is a great stretch in the glutes on the leg that she's pulling up, and she's also getting a lot of ankle stability and calf activation on the back leg. And that's a hip cradle. Notice she's getting a nice amount of elevation in that shin, and you'll want to do those for about 10 to 15 yards.
So now you should have a nice array of drills when it comes to warming up your 14 to 18-year-old athletes. Feel free to use them in the order that I presented them here today, or you can just pick and choose drills that are to your liking and sprinkle them in as you see fit. Either way, they're not only going to help better prepare your athletes for competition, but they're also going to play a major role in helping them avoid injury. I'll see you right here next time on the Long Island Junior Soccer League website.